Hello there fellow cake friends and welcome to this week's tutorial. Today we are going to be making stems of eucalyptus, which are super easy and beautiful for the upcoming winter months. You can use them in your arrangements or even in wreaths. And as always, you can find all the tools, equipment, and colors I'm using for this entire tutorial in the description box below. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel before we get started. It helps me make more videos like this for you. And without further delay, let's get to the tutorial. This is the type of eucalyptus we're going to be making today. So to start, you're going to need an 18 gauge wire. I'm going to use half of a wire for each of the stems. So we'll begin by cutting these right in half, and I am making one side a bit longer than the other so that I can have variation in the heights. Next, you'll grab some brown half-width floral tape and tape from the very top to the very bottom. Basically, what we're trying to achieve is just a simple brown stem. So I'm making sure to really stretch out that floral tape so that the glue is activated as I make my way all the way down the wire. And repeat with the remaining wires. The last step before we get started on adding the leaves is going to be to bend those wires just to give them a little bit more life so they're not so straight up and down and static looking. You kind of want them to look like they've been maybe swaying in the wind a little bit and just have them in a natural shape and not so straight. So I've got a batch of my regular white gum paste here, which I will link to in the description box below. And it's straight out of the fridge a few minutes ago, so I'm just giving it a good knead before I add any color. And don't be afraid of adding a bit of shortening to your hands if you find it gets a little bit sticky, or cornstarch if your area is very humid. I'm going to be coloring this with eucalyptus color, of course. So I have two here, one sugar flare and one pro gel. I'm going to use the Pro Gel today, and they're pretty much the same thing, just slightly different shades. I'm gonna color just a small piece first, just to check the intensity of the color. So I've just put a dab of that onto my gum paste, and we will see how dark that gets, and then I will knead it into the white gum paste afterwards. So the eucalyptus color is a really nice bluey green kind of color with even a hint of gray. I find the sugar flare actually has a bit more of the gray color in it, but this will work perfectly fine for today. This looks great. I'm gonna need about half of it in right now, just so I can gauge the amount of color that I'm putting in and I don't oversaturate it all at once. I think I'll add just a tiny bit more of the eucalyptus. And we are going to end up dusting it later, which will add a lot more color and depth to the leaves. And I am going to link to all of the tools, ingredients, and everything else in the description box below, so you can grab these colors, you can grab my recipe, everything will be there for you. Okay, I think this looks great, and I'm just going to keep that covered for now and show you what we're going to use for cutters. So for cutters, I have a variety of different sizes. I have some cutters that are just round Ateco cutters, and then I just use large round piping tips in order to cut out some circles that are a bit smaller because I don't have any cutters that are this size. So these will work perfectly, and let's get started. So we have our prepared wires here. These are the 18 gauge with the brown tape wrapped around them. So I will keep these aside. We'll be using them in a moment. And I have my prepared gum paste, which I will just grab a piece. Just give that a press and we will roll it out, and then I'm going to put it through the pasta machine. It's a bit humid in here today, so I'm going to add a bit of cornstarch while I roll this. So I'm going to roll this to a number 3 on the pasta machine. Number 3 gives it enough structure so that it's not going to fall off, but it is a little bit thinner, so we're not struggling with really heavy, thick petals. So I will begin cutting these out. I have my plastic wrap on the side to put all of my petals or my leaves in as I work. So we'll start with the very small one. And I'm gonna cut out 4 of these. Then moving on to the next size, I'm going to cut out 6 of these. So see how easy that is just to use whatever you have. You don't have to buy cutters for everything. I find these super helpful, and there's all sorts of stuff in the kitchen that you can use for your gum paste flowers. Next size, I'm going to cut out 4. And you can always cut out a few extra, which I usually do, just in case you mess up a few, or you want to just try the technique out first before committing to adding them to your stems. And I'm going to cut out 4 of this size, which is the next size up. Today I will show you one of the longer eucalyptus stems, but you can also make some shorter ones just like this by just reducing the number and the size of the leaves that you're putting on. So we will start with this guy and grab 2 of our smallest leaves. So these guys are super tiny. I'm gonna start just by thinning out the edges of, I would say, the top 3/4 of it. So you kind of want to leave the bottom untouched so it's easier to attach onto your stem. Just gives it a little bit more width. But the rest we can thin out quite a bit. Just like that. And I kind of like to give them a shape as I'm thinning it out, a little bit wider on the sides and the top. This step is optional. You can or don't use a leaf veiner. You can see on these ones that I made before, I did not use it, and it's not necessary, but I will show you how to just in case you want. So all you have to do is press that right at the top, and I'll do 2 at once because they're so tiny. Just center it as best you can, and then give it a very gentle press. Eucalyptus doesn't have a really deep vein on it. It's perfect. So at the base, where it is a bit wider, we're gonna take some of our gum glue and just put a tiny dab right at the bottom. Then grab your wire, and we will press that on, just kind of enveloping the top of the wire, just hugging it right around, just like that. And then this guy will go on the opposite side. And there are many ways to make this type of eucalyptus. You could definitely wire all of these petals if you wanted it to look extremely realistic, but for me, this is totally fine, and it looks great on cakes, in photos, everything. So there are your first 2 leaves. So let's move on to the next. I will grab the 2 smaller ones, the last 2 small ones, because we cut out 4 in total, and do the exact same thing. You can widen this one a little bit more, stretch it out a tiny bit more, because as the leaves go down, they do get larger. And give these a quick vein. So this is just an all-purpose leaf veiner, or a rose leaf veiner, I think. I use it for a ton of different leaves. And again, just a dab of gum glue right at the base. Don't oversaturate it or it's gonna start slipping up and down your wire. And then we're going to do the same technique by adding the two facing each other, kind of hugging the wire. I'll put this one a bit off center, so it's not exactly at the same angle as these ones were. Just makes it look a little more realistic. So just hugging that onto the wire and then opening it up. And this guy will go opposite that. That looks perfect, and we'll move on to the next size. So as we attach these next ones, I won't put them exactly at the same angle as the previous ones. So hug it around the wire and then you can open it up afterwards. So I'm going to continue with this size that I have, and then when we get to the next size, I'll show you what to do so that your leaves don't start drooping or getting too floppy, because they can start to do that as the leaves get larger. I've prepared these two, which are the next size up, in the exact same way as I did for the first few layers of leaves. And all I want to do is be sure that I'm not adding too much gum glue, because that will really start making them sag off of the branch. So just adding a little bit there, and then I'm going to wipe off the excess with my finger. So it's basically just slightly tacky. And now I'm going to add one here and open that up. And then I'm going to add the other one below it for the next layer of leaves, so that I can allow these two to dry partially before I start adding on more, because they could start weighing it down or make it too wet. So I will just add this one on. And if you find that they are moving at all, just sliding or anything, not drying exactly the way you want them to, allow it to dry for a bit horizontally. This will help take a bit of the pressure off and allow it to par dry before we start adding more of the leaves on. So I will leave this to sit for a few minutes, just until it's a little more firm, and then I can go ahead and add the leaves on the opposite sides of both of these. So I've allowed this set of leaves to par dry. It's just been maybe 3 or 4 minutes. And I will put just that tiny dab of gum glue onto the bottom of my next 2 prepared leaves. And again, I'm going to wipe off the excess. Then I can attach these. So just carefully pressing that around, and if it's too tricky to put your fingers in there, just use your ball tool. So those next 2 are set, and we will move on to the next larger size. And I'm going to do the exact same process so that the leaves don't start falling off as I'm working. So I'm going to add the next 2, allow them to par dry, and then I will add their opposite companion afterwards. So this is the next size up, and I'm preparing it exactly the same way. Comment below and tell me your favorite type of winter foliage. I absolutely love these eucalyptus, but I do use them all year round. They remind me of the spa, but they also look beautiful in winter arrangements and wreaths. But I would love to hear what your favorite is. So again, just attaching that just like this, and you can see how heavy this is. So it is starting to droop if I put it more vertically, so I'll just leave it like this. And then attach this one down there as well. So I do try and make these slightly off center, but it's not a huge deal. I'll let these par dry just horizontally like this, and then we can add their opposite sides just in a few minutes. The way to know that your leaves are ready to go vertically again so you can add on the other side is if you can hold them vertically and you don't see it moving at all, and also just give it a little nudge. You can see there's a lot of resistance here and it's not going to fall down. So we're good to go. I will add the other side on now. Adding the gum glue, wiping off the excess, and then adding these two on the opposite sides. So I will allow this to dry horizontally overnight, and then tomorrow we will be ready to dust it. And in the meantime, I'm just gonna make a few more so that we have a nice little bunch of eucalyptus. Now that the eucalyptus has had time to dry overnight, we are ready to dust it. So I'll just show you, it's nice and sturdy now. And this is one of the shorter ones that I made yesterday. And then this guy is one of the larger ones. So with the dusting, what we want to achieve is a little bit more depth and also a little bit more blueness, because these eucalyptus do have quite a blue hue to them. I've got a few different colors here. So this one is kind of a grayish blue color with a touch of green. I've got a navy, a green, a burgundy, and a caramel. These two are just kind of accent colors, and then these are the main ones that we'll be using to dust. As always, we will start with a bit of cornstarch on our work surface, and this will help distribute the color more evenly. Then I'm going to grab some of this grayish green dust. And I will add some of the blue to it, and also some of the green. I've grabbed a charcoal kind of black color that I'm going to mix into this as well. So I really like this slate blue color that I've made, and I will begin to dust it onto my eucalyptus, starting at the top. So I'm using a smaller brush because there are some more detailed areas that I need to get into. And I will start at the top here, just dusting that right into the center. And then just gently catching the back of the leaves as well. And then as I move down, I still want to focus most of the dust into the middle area, which will add depth to it, and then catch the leaves so that the veining comes out. Because we rolled it to a number 3 yesterday when we were making these leaves, they should be fairly sturdy. You shouldn't really have to worry about any breaking off here. So I will just continue dusting down all of these leaves and these two guys here, and I will show you what it looks like when I'm all finished. Right now I'm finishing up my final eucalyptus, and then we are going to be adding just a little bit of highlights and some kind of damaged areas to make it look more realistic with the burgundy and the caramel colors. So you can see how I catch the dust just on that veining that we added earlier. Tell me in the comments below what flowers you are going to pair with your eucalyptus. I've paired this with roses and anemone, and also just by itself on a marble cake. So it's very versatile. And there we go. So now I will just mix up a tiny bit of the burgundy and the caramel with a touch of cornstarch. I'm gonna add a touch of green to the burgundy just to mute it a bit. So what I'll do with this is just catch it on some edges. You want this to be subtle. Just some subtle warmth, which adds a lot of life. Because as flowers or leaves get older, they do start turning brown a little bit, so it kind of shows a little bit more age. And it just adds some character. I think this looks perfect, and I will just finish up the last two. And there are your completed eucalyptus. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this eucalyptus tutorial video, and if you do make them, please tag me on social media at Finespun Cakes with 2 S's everywhere. You can also grab the tools, equipment, and all the colors that I used for this whole video in the description box below. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to my channel. It helps me make more videos just like this one for you. And I will see you next time.